Brethren, all things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be enslaved by anything. Food is meant for the stomach, and the stomach for food, and God will destroy both one and the other. The body is not meant for immorality, but for the Lord, and the Lord for the body. And God raised the Lord and will also raise us up by his power. Do you not know that your bodies are members of Christ? Shall I therefore take the members of Christ and make them members of a prostitute? Never. Do you not know that he who joins himself to a prostitute becomes one body with her? For as it is written, the two shall become one flesh. But he who is united to the Lord becomes one spirit with him. Shun immorality. Every other sin which a man commits is outside the body, but the immoral man sins against his own body. Do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, which you have from God? You are not your own, you were bought with a price. So glorify God in your body and in your spirit which belong to God.
Peace be to thee that readeth.
Alleluia. Alleluia. Alleluia.
Wisdom, arise. Let us hear the holy gospel. Irene pasi, peace be to all.
And with your spirit.
The reading is from the holy gospel according to St. Luke. Let us be attentive.
Glory to you, O Lord. Glory to you.
The Lord said this parable. A certain man had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of the estate that will come to me. So the father divided his livelihood between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all that he had and traveled to a far country. There he squandered his property, living immorally. When he had spent everything, a severe famine took place in that country, and he began to be in need. He went and hired himself to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into the field to feed pigs. He wanted to feed himself with the husks that the pigs ate, but no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, How many of my father's hired servants have bread enough to spare, and I'm dying with hunger? I will get up, go to my father, and tell him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me as one of your hired servants. So he set off and went to his father. But while he was still at a distance, his father saw him and was moved with compassion. He ran and embraced his son and kissed him. Then the son said, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his slaves, Bring out the first robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet. Bring the fattened calf, kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this my son was dead, and he is alive again. He was lost, and now he is found. And they began to celebrate. Now his elder son was in the field. As he came near to the house, he heard music and dancing. Calling one of the servants, he asked what was going on. The servant replied, Your brother has returned. Your father has killed a fattened calf, because he has received him back safe and healthy. However, the elder son became angry, and he would not go in. Therefore his father came out and begged him. But he answered his father, Look, for so many years I have served you, and I have never disobeyed a commandment of yours. Yet you never gave me a goat that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this your son arrived, he who has devoured you living with prostitutes, you killed the fattened calf for him. The father said to him, Son, you're always with me, and all that is mine is yours. But it was fitting to celebrate and to rejoice. For this your brother was dead, and is alive again. He was lost, and is found.
Glory to you, O
I mentioned back when I first came here that one of the interesting parts of being a supply priest is things change a little from parish to parish. Or as I like to say it, well, the Orthodox Church does it the same everywhere except when it doesn't. Now, if you notice, I can always notice that because, I haven't been here for just a few short weeks. It wasn't that long ago that I was last here, and already I was having trouble coordinating with the chanter because I'm no longer used to his spacings and so on. So I will tell you that, yep, we messed up a little bit. Maybe I should just say I messed up a little bit since this is his church. Uh, Welcome to the fact that your priest, and I include Father Stephen in this, is not perfect. Now let's look at the gospel. And actually, we're going to look at 4 gospels. And you're going, oh no, 4 gospels. Well, we're not going to look at them in detail. You know how we in the Orthodox Church love to repeat things 3 times. Well, unless we repeat them 7 times, or unless we repeat them 40 times, or unless we repeat them 100 times. But repetition. This Sunday and the last 2 were your 3 times repetition. The punchline comes next Sunday. Those are the 4 gospels that I'm talking about. And like I said, I won't go into them in detail. But these past 3 Sundays, today and the last 2, where the preparation, the repetition, and next Sunday, Meat Fair Sunday, is the punchline. Okay, so what was the repetition? Canaanite woman, Pharisee and publican, prodigal son. What is the same thing that is being shown in all 3 of those Gospels? Why did the church choose them as part of our preparation for Lent? You don't have to answer that because I'm about to. I'm going to make life easy for you. In all 3 of those Gospels, including the one today, the good guy turns out to be the bad guy, and the bad guy turns out to be the good guy. It's that simple. In all 3 Gospels, the good guy turns out to be the bad guy, and the bad guy turns out to be the good guy, except in the first Gospel, it's not a guy, it's a woman. It's a Canaanite woman. Now, was the Canaanite woman the sort of bad guy? Well, certainly. What did she come saying? She came crying, "Forgive my sin." Who were the good guys? The apostles. What were they saying? Send her away. What was the lesson they learned? At the end of that reading, Jesus says, I have found more faith in this woman than I found in all of Israel. Who turned out to be wrong? Apostles. And the bad person became the heroine of the story. She is the one who demonstrated the type of faith that God was looking for in this world. Now, one of the things that I like about the Gospels chosen by the church is, in case you didn't catch that, the next 2 Gospels get really obvious. Who was the theoretical good guy in the Pharisee and the publican? The Pharisee. I have kept all your commandments. I have done this. I'm glad I'm not like that publican over there. And what's the publican going? Lord, I don't even have the right to be here. Just forgive me my sins. Who turned out to be the bad guy? Well, just like the apostles, the churchgoer. Now see, I'm going to add a term there that's not in the Bible. The apostle and the Pharisees, the churchgoers, were the ones that were wrong. Who was obviously the good guy? The publican. What was he doing? The same thing as the Canaanite woman. I don't deserve to be here. She said, but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table, after the Lord deliberately called her a dog, as all the church fathers say, to see how his own apostles would respond, and they flunked. Because at the end, I can, all the church fathers comment on how, looking at the apostles, he points at the woman and says, she has shown more faith than anyone in Israel. Now, since all the apostles were from Israel, what was Jesus saying about their faith? In fact, if you notice at the end of that passage, um, all of a sudden I can't remember if it was the rich young ruler or this passage. Peter, ends up saying, we have left everything for you. He's sort of defending himself. And that's when Jesus says there's no person who is like father, no mother, nor brother and sister, nor this, that, or the other, who shall not be with me in the kingdom of heaven. But that was only when Peter starts defending the apostles, saying, wait a minute. Doesn't what we do count? Why? Well, because, the Canaanite woman thing. When they got told that she had more faith than they did, because if he's found more faith in her than he found in Israel, and they're from Israel, they were getting the boot. So what about today? Who's the good guy? The elder brother. All that I have is yours, and you're always with me. Who's the bad guy? Prodigal son. What does it say about him? Spent all his money on prostitutes. That's a quote from today's Gospels. Threw all his money away. But by the end of the story, who turns out to be the good guy? The prodigal son who comes and says, Father, I am not worthy to be in your kingdom. Now, are you starting to hear a refrain? Canaanite woman. But even the dogs get the crumbs. The publican, I should not be here, but have mercy on me, Lord. And the prodigal, Father, I have sinned against you. I'll settle for just being one of the hired servants. Just give me some food and a place to stay, and I will work for everything you give me. Are you catching a pattern here? Should I tell you that next Sunday is Judgment Sunday? He lines up the sheep and the goats at his right hand and his left hand. The warning of these 3 weeks is that the more that we think that we are doing the right thing and are worthy, the closer we're coming to stumbling and making a massive mistakes. Whether you're an apostle who mistook the situation with the Canaanite woman, whether you're a Pharisee who kept all the laws, at least the ones that had to do with God, or whether you were the older brother who could not stand the thought that his younger brother could be forgiven, in every one of these 3 weeks, it is the person who most thinks of themselves as righteous who is the one who is shown to actually be in more need than the ones who sinned but were willing to come and admit it. By the way, that's also a nice introduction to, during Lent, you're supposed to come and do a confession. Did you hear that one? You're a brand new priest. You have confessions right here. Better yet, he's a psychologist, so he can help you out in more ways than one. See, these are I should joke. I'm a certified clinical chaplain, so it's not like, I also don't give plenty of advice. But these are the 3 weeks where the church was trying to say to you, by way of the gospel readings, in order to prepare you for Lent, don't think too highly of yourselves. Don't assume that because I'm going to church, I'm tithing. Remember that whole list of the publican? Or don't think that just because I gave up everything to follow the Lord or the apostles, or don't think that because I've always been there at the church, that that means there is no problem inside of me that needs to be dealt with. In fact, each one of those occasions became a way for God to show the supposedly good person that inside there was something wrong with them. See, that is what Lent is about. Lent is about getting you each year to examine yourself and to realize that you're closer to being like the publican, the apostles, and the elder brother than you thought. This past month, I read a news story that, have you ever read one of those news stories that made you either want to pound on your head on the wall, scream, or write this Twitter or Facebook post or something that later on you're going to go, oh, can I delete this quick? I read one of those this past month. No politics, okay? What did I read? About a month ago, there was a controversy in another state in a small town. This fireman had gotten themselves up to the point of being promoted to being a commander, I think, captain of, firehouse. Okay, I am not a fire person, but he was going to be in charge of the firehouse, the local one, not in charge of everything. And then some people found out that he had a past. When he had been a teenager, he had actually set a fire in a firehouse and been caught. Now, supposedly the records were supposed to have been sealed, but there's always somebody willing to leak a record. But what had happened with that young man was that he, seeing what had happened to him and what he had done, he had decided that he was going to pay back the city, I don't mean money, pay back by endangering himself and becoming a fireman. Now, I have friends who are firemen, and believe me, you endanger your life when you're a fireman. And he said, I need to do this because of what I did when I was a youngster. Do you know there were people saying that instead of being promoted, he ought to be fired because since when he was a child, he had set fire to a firehouse, that he should never be allowed to have such a job. In other words, what they were basically saying was, for the rest of your life, this kid should maybe get a McDonald's job and nothing else and should be happy that we allow him to work at McDonald's. They were actually upset that he had been allowed to become a fireman. He had served faithfully for years. You do not get to be in charge of one of the local firehouses. I happen to know a captain in the Birmingham Fire Brigade. It took her 20 years to become a captain of a firehouse in Birmingham. So this kid had served his time. There were people who sounded just like the elder brother. This man should be fired. He should have never been allowed to be a fireman. How could he earn this sort of good money given what he did? Here's the kicker, when he was a juvenile. Can you see why I got so angry? This was the elder brother all over again. The people who were yelling about it didn't win. The town ended up coming out in support of this fine adult who had turned his life around and decided to give back to the fire department what he had taken from them by serving with them. See, that's what these 3 weeks are about, is helping us to realize how often, maybe not as obviously as this case with the firehouse, but how often within us something resides that needs to be cured. That's why the next Sunday is Judgment Sunday with the sheep and the goats. And if you listen very closely next week, nowhere does God sitting on his throne say anything about going to church or declaring, well, this was before Jesus died, so not declaring Jesus as Lord, but maybe declaring that Yahweh is my God. It was all about how did you live out the life I gave you to live. And in fact, listen carefully, because among the goats, if you read the whole passage, not just the shortened form, you'll find out that later on some of the goats say, but Lord, Lord, did we not preach in your name? Did we not do miracles in your name? And the answer is, depart from me, I never knew you. It's not that I knew you and then you sort of lost it. It was like, I never knew you. From the beginning, your heart was in the wrong place. Because they were concentrating on the things they were doing for God, supposedly, and ignoring their neighbor. Well, that's commandment 1. You shall love the Lord your God with all your life, all your heart, all your soul. But none of the folks in the last 3 weeks, and I include the apostles, at this point in time were loving their neighbors as themselves. In each one of the weeks, there's a lack of love for someone who has come repenting and ready to change. It's the story of that fireman who somebody leaked his records. You shall never be forgiven. It's a good way to become a goat. That's why the Our Father, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. All 3 weeks, there was a failure of forgiveness, or at least willingness to receive people in the apostles, in the Pharisee, and in the older brother. Can you see the warm-up, the preparation for Lent? Let me tell you, every year I go through these 3, and every year by Judgment Sunday, I'm ready to join the publican and go, oh Lord, I am not worthy of anything. It doesn't matter that I've been a priest. It doesn't matter that I've heard confession. It doesn't matter that I'm a certified clinical chaplain. It doesn't matter that I've been serving 1 day a week in ICU during the COVID pandemic for 2 years now. It's all irrelevant unless I have been showing love to my neighbor along with my love for God. And so often in Lent, as you examine yourselves, you will find out that you look and you go, well, the part about love toward God, I have that down reasonably well. I did the Holy Transfiguration. I'm here every Sunday. I help once a month to put all the bags together. The question most often where we fail, now I'm not saying any if you fail, but Lent is about examining yourself, is how have you been behaving toward others? How have you loved your neighbors? Now, one of the things I love about coming to this church happens to be all those bags that I see if I come at just the right time of the month. Because it shows me that you're trying to do what? Love your neighbor. And isn't that the whole point of the monthly thing? And yet, I warn you, Lent is a time when you should take a hard look at yourself and listen to the reading next Sunday. Have I been behaving toward my neighbor in such a way that the Lord could look at me and say, not that I'm perfect, but that you have done well? Now, there's a difference between being perfect and doing well. That's another sermon. Have you done well? See, that's the self-examination for Lent. Not, are you perfect? I've got bad news for you. Forget the perfect, you flunked already. All right? I know I haven't heard your confessions. It's okay. I already know you're flunked. Why do I know you're flunked? You're a human being. You're fallen. Jesus hasn't redeemed you yet. He hasn't come back. You still have that fallen nature inside of you. You're fighting thoughts you shouldn't fight. You do things you shouldn't do. You get angry with your wife, husband, brother, sister, coworker, and say something unfortunate. But that's not the question. The question for next week will be, have you done well with what God has given you? So there you go. You now have the summary of the last 3 weeks, and you know what's coming up next week. May God give you a good and graceful life.